Okay, so what if I told you the most dangerous crime boss in the entire world? A literal mastermind pulling the strings of emperors and demigods. What if she really just wanted a happy marriage? Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are zeroing in on one of the absolutely most fascinating and frankly terrifying figures in the card world, Sansa Baylor. We're going to do a deep dive character study here of a woman whose godlike abilities are driven by, well, the most incredibly petty, mundane human emotions imaginable. To really unpack this incredibly dense character, we're going to break things down into 4 quick chapters. We'll look at the perfect wife facade, her role as the matron of the shadows, the weaponization of memory, and finally, the final confrontation. The goal here is to see exactly how her immense powers perfectly mirror her deep-seated psychology. All right, let's jump right into Chapter 1, The Perfect Wife Facade, which is basically a masterful illusion. We really have to start by looking at the chilling duality of Sansa's everyday existence in the central capital. On one hand, you have the public, Sansa Baylor. To the rest of the world, she's this prestigious, devoted, completely harmless wife of the young demigod Baylor. Word on the street is she has practically zero combat power. But then, you look in the shadows, and she is the matron. She's the undisputed head of the dreaded Paw clan. She's manipulating card emperors, she's pulling the strings of false demigods, and she's acting as this absolute shadow mastermind right under the noses of the world's most powerful people. It's like night and day. So you've got to ask, what is her motivation? Why build this massive secret empire in the first place? Well, there's a quote from Sansa that reveals a lot. It shows this obsessive, entirely unrequited love for her husband, Baylor, and that is what anchors literally all of her grand, psychotic ambitions. She built an entire shadow empire to manipulate global events. And why? Just to make sure Baylor remained at the absolute center of her universe and she at his. We're talking about a toxic, romantic obsession scaled up to a massive global threat. That brings us to Chapter 2, Matron of the Shadows, focusing on the Paw clan and Madame Web's club. Let's see exactly how this twisted love actually birthed an underground empire. Basically, Sansa built an ecosystem that caters to the absolute darkest desires of the elite. Card emperors and false demigods, they hunger for things that money and status just can't buy, right? And Sansa, she provides the whole shebang. Need a targeted assassination? Done. Looking for extinct or forbidden card ingredients? She'll find them. Need someone to cover up literal acts of genocide? Handled. And the kicker is, she doesn't even do it for cash. She trades these highly illegal services for merits in her club. That system allows her to anchor these incredibly powerful figures completely under her thumb. And she doesn't just, hire random mercenaries. She uses this super calculated 3-step method to basically turn powerful elites into a personal, brainwashed cult. Step 1, find someone with a dark secret. Step 2, fulfill their deepest desires to hook them on that merit system we just talked about. And step 3, this is where it gets truly sinister. She uses her origin card to suppress their memories. So one day you're just living your normal life, and the next a suppressed memory triggers, and boom, you are carrying out an assassination for the Paw clan without ever even knowing why. It is brilliant, but it's terrifying. Which leads us perfectly into Chapter 3, the weaponization of memory. This is her toolkit of terror. To really grasp how she maintains this unbreakable control over so many heavy hitters, we have to look at the horrific mechanics of her magic. Her primary ability is memory suppression. Now, what's really interesting here is how this power perfectly mirrors her own suppressed insecurities and her desperate need to control her environment. With just a single thought, she can erase memories or instantly crush any inkling of rebellion within her ranks. If a card emperor suddenly becomes a liability, she can literally force them into a vegetative state from miles away. Just like that. But, it escalates. When she hits the demigod level, she unlocks something called haunting memories. Basically, if you even remember her, you are at risk. She can actually make the memory of her inside your own mind come to life as a phantom to spy on you. And it gets worse. She can weaponize your perception of her into a lethal assassination tool. She is literally using this space inside her enemies' own minds as a weapon to kill them. I mean, how do you run from someone who literally lives inside your head? And then we have her ultimate trump card, Memory Womb. This grants her a really twisted form of immortality. If her physical body is destroyed, she can use someone else's memory of her as a metaphorical womb to be reborn at her peak power. The horrific catch, though, it completely kills the host in the process. It just proves that her absolute, unshakable faith in her origin card is completely justified because it makes her nearly impossible to kill permanently. But despite all this insane, godlike power, spying through thoughts, erasing minds, literal immortality, what is actually driving her? Well, it comes down to this. She's entirely driven by petty human jealousy over her late best friend Ellen. You see, Ellen was the woman Baylor truly loved. And even though Ellen is dead, Sansa's deep-rooted insecurity demands she erase any trace of her, which drives her to obsessively hunt down Ellen's orphan son, Dalton Wyatt. I mean, we are talking Shakespearean levels of tragic irony here. And that brings us to the climax of our explainer. Chapter 4, the final confrontation. This is where an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. It's the inevitable clash with Ellen's son, Wyatt. Let's quickly trace how this conflict rapidly escalated. A month ago, she starts by sending dozens of card emperors to assassinate young Wyatt. When that completely fails, a week ago, she pivots and uses her sleeper cells to infiltrate the Freedom Fighters, an organization Wyatt is tied to. But Wyatt, he is always one step ahead. That leads us directly to the present, a face-to-face trap where Sansa suddenly finds herself trapped in Wyatt's celestial blood fate domain, which is a space cut off entirely from the outside world. The clash of strategies here is fascinating. The matron relies entirely on her victim having memories of her to trigger her attacks and her escapes, right? But Wyatt brilliantly counters her. He actively suppresses his own memories of her, giving her absolutely nothing to latch onto. Plus, by using his domain, he completely blocks her origin card's access to the outside world. She can't trigger a memory bomb. She can't use a memory wand to escape. She is, for all intents and purposes, magically neutralized. So stripped of all her magical advantages, the battle just becomes purely psychological. And Wyatt utterly destroys her by attacking the one pathetic vulnerability anchoring her entire empire. He looks at her and says, "Baylor only married you because he promised Ellen he would." Now, whether that's entirely true or not almost doesn't matter. It is exactly what Sansa fears most. He forces her to confront this harsh reality. She built an empire of fear just to mask the fact that she was always second best in her own husband's heart. And that brings us to this incredibly chilling quote. With Sansa emotionally broken and magically trapped, Wyatt just effortlessly forces the once untouchable matron into submission. He promises her survival, but only if she serves him. As long as you stay useful to me, you'll live a full life. It is a brutal role reversal. Wyatt doesn't look at her as a master manipulator. He just views her as a tool to be used against his other enemies. He basically treats her with the casual indifference a butcher gives to a piece of meat. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. After spending decades building a massive empire on the manipulation, brainwashing, and destruction of others just to serve her own romantic delusions, is Sansa Baylor doomed to spend the rest of her days as just another pawn in someone else's game? It really makes you think about the sheer irony of power. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I'll catch you next time.